Hey everyone, time for another book review. I am really excited. First off, for the first time in weeks, I'm not wearing a black shirt. And I love this shirt. A little polar bear cuddling a panda bear. I'm so excited to be wearing a shirt. I found it while cleaning out the bedroom the other day. But this week we are going to be discussing In the Absence of Sun by Helie Lee. Or as they say or pronounce in Korean, Helie. So, throughout the book, she's referred to both ways, so that's why I bring that up. So this book has some particularly interesting significance lately with, Trump's tweets and I don't know what's going on in the news, but it's pertinent. The average Goodreads rating was 4.03. I gave it 5 stars. I love this book. It's a story of a woman. Her first book was Still Life with Rice, and I'll be honest, I haven't read that. I intend to. I ordered it. And in that book, she had talked about the son that her grandmother was forced to leave behind, one of her uncles. In this book, it comes out that, and this is all true, it comes out that her book has actually led North Korean authorities to her family in North Korea because she didn't change names or anything. She really put them in danger with this book, or that book. So the decision is made amongst her family that they are going to try to get Halmoni, her grandmother, over to that area so that she can see her son one last time before she dies. She's 85. At that age, you don't know how much longer the person's going to go on. So they really wanted to bring Halmoni some closure. And somewhere along the way, they see at least a glimpse of the horrible conditions Young-woon uncle is living in North Korea with his family, and the decision is made to help them escape. So it brings up a lot of mixed feelings and a lot of questions and a lot of scary stuff actually, looking at North Korea. Like I said, I really enjoyed this book. There were points where, my eyes kind of glossed over a little bit, especially towards the end where, spoiler alert, the rest of the family makes it out in 2 shipments, kind of. In the second family, when they make it out, the story doesn't come out right away how it happened. So she does go through very compactly how that happens, and, my eyes kind of glossed over a little bit through that part. Just a lot of, names of places being thrown around, and at that point, my brain was not working on all cylinders. It's been a busy week. So, but there were a lot of parts that were a really quick read. There were a lot of parts that were, they were just very gripping and, page turning. And we'll get into a lot of this. Like I said, I did really enjoy it. The first thing I am going to bring up, my first beef with this book, though, she mentions that she didn't. One of the times that she flies out to China, to Korea, to help with getting her extended family out of North Korea, was she printed out all the information she could find about North Korea and, was reading it on the plane, and the stack was about 4 inches thick. And she mentions, I wish I had marked the page, but I didn't. She mentions not having really learned about it before. And my initial response to that was, you already wrote a book about your family in North Korea. Or, this son that got left behind and is now living in North Korea. why would you not do this research sooner, like with book one? Um, you're writing about your family. Why would you not do that research? And that part really angered me. It was hard to get a pulse on what her baseline knowledge of it was, but a lot of the stuff she expresses surprise at is like, why are you surprised? To be fair, the period at which this is being written, or the time that is being recounted, it's like 1996, 1997. So at that time I was like 12. So I guess I can't judge too much because I don't know how much information about North Korea was out there at the time. But I'm pretty sure even at that time people knew North Korea was bad and things were bad there. And I was thinking, I kind of try to put myself in her shoes, like, okay, I probably have extended family back in Ireland. My great-grandparents were, like, off the boat Irish, so I probably still have family over there. If I were writing a history of my family, like, how much research would I have done? And, I still think I would have done more research than she seemed to have. I don't know. It's weird. And granted, I'm not that knowledgeable right now about my family's history, but on the flip side, I'm also not writing a book about my Irish relatives. So, whatever. But that was one point that, really, really annoyed me. Really? I mean, and she even writes about the regret that becomes the basis of this whole book. Why had I used Young-Woon Uncle's real name in my book? Why had I included Aaron's letter at the end? To be honest, in the back of my mind circulated the stories I had heard of secret agents of espionage, of brainwashing, but for some reason none of it had seemed to pertain to my family. It had never occurred to me that what I was writing was unsafe. Other people have written about North Korea. If I had known the whole story, I wouldn't have included the letter and real names, but the fact was I hadn't known about the concentration camps, the killings. I thought I could do some good by drawing attention to the plight of war-torn families. Instead, I had led authorities right to my family. So this is a very interesting, self-contradictory, or maybe a more layered paragraph, because she's talking about, I had heard these stories about secret agents and espionage of brainwashing, but I hadn't known about concentration camps and killing. It's like, well, I mean, if you got secret agents and brainwashing, in this secretive nation, you don't think they would go that next step and, brutalize families? But, I mean, again, 90s and, what was known versus what was known at that point, I don't know. But that point really annoyed me. The idea of navigating fault when cultures and politics collide. We just heard that paragraph about, why did I lead, I led the authorities right to my family. And later on in the book, page 211, there's a period where she has to keep Halmoni in a hotel room while her father and the guide go to try to get the family members out. And Halmoni is losing it. And from a medical standpoint, I can see where that is happening. You see it a lot in older patients who are hospitalized. It's called sundowning. They start flipping out, and sometimes they can see things, or they get really combative. And so I could totally, I saw it developing as oh boy, that's going to be fun. But at one point, Helie is laying in bed, and she feels her grandmother looking at her. "I'm watching you," she whispered darkly. Blah, blah, blah. "I would rather see you dead than the Reds capture you. They'll strap you to a bed, then shove a spout down your throat and pump you with water until it comes out your nose. They'll rip off all your clothes and whip you with a leather strap and twist your fingers with pine sticks. And this goes on for an entire paragraph of all the stuff the North Koreans will do to you, the communists will do to you. You know, and it ends again with, you know, I'd rather, you know, see you dead than the Reds capture you. You know, and how much of this is kind of like the sundowning and, you know, keeping an elderly person constrained versus, you know, the truth. It's scary. I mean, this was probably the scariest part of the book for me, was this paragraph and this interaction. You know, because the grandmother says they kidnapped Kim Dae-jung. They dragged him into the sea and pulled him onto a boat. I'm not Kim Dae-jung, I whined. And she explains who Kim Jae-dung is. They're coming to get you tonight. They're just waiting for us to fall asleep. You know, Kim Dae-jung was a man of courage and belief, a spellbinding orator, a leader. I was just Helie Lee. And that part, I marked that page specifically because of that line, I'm just Helie Lee. And something to keep in mind when we're talking about North Korea and when we're talking about communist countries, you know, there's no, I'm just anybody. You know, everyone is a potential suspect. You know, in North Korea, they have these groups called Inminban, and it's kind of like the neighborhood watch. You know, every neighborhood is broken down into these groups of families within a single Inminban, and they essentially keep tabs on each other and spy on each other. And, you know, there are some who'll be like, okay, they're acting a little weird, I'm not going to say anything. And then there are others who are like, you know, she came out of her apartment 5 minutes late, I'm reporting that. You know, but you can't necessarily, I was about to say you can't be angry at them. Yes, you can be angry at them. You have to look at it also through the lens of this is survival, because they have, I forget what it's called, but they will have times when they get together and they have to essentially make a confession about themselves or someone else. They have to snitch on themselves or someone else, like, I came out of my apartment 5 minutes late, I overslept, I'm a horrible person, I will strive to do better for dear leader in the future. Like, you know, it's survival in North Korea, and it's just this vicious cycle of, while everyone's trying to survive, things get more and more violent and more horrible. So, you know, but navigating that fault of, you know, I am the one that brought this on my family. You know, I did it with my book. And it's like, well, yeah, you did, but at the same time, they might have done something else and it would have happened anyway. You know, so. Also, you see in this book very mixed feelings towards family. And the biggest example for me is when Halmoni finally gets to see her long-lost son. She has a very cool response to him. You know, she doesn't cry. He's wailing and whining and, you know, oh, Mona, you know, but, oh, Moni, sorry. But she's very cool. And at this time, they have documentary crew following them, you know, and they got that in order to try to bolster their case with the South Korean government, you know, to help get their family into South Korea. The director of the documentary later asked Halmoni, like, why didn't you cry, da-da-da? And she was like, I was crying on the inside, you know, but she was very cool and very stoic. And even Helie mentions, like, it was kind of weird. You know, she wasn't crying, you know, he was, like, all over her and she wasn't crying. But then when her, I guess it would be her cousin, Moon Churl, the director brings him to Halmoni's hotel room, and at first they think it's someone coming in to attack, because he literally, like, launches himself at her on the bed, you know, and he's crying and bawling. She starts crying and bawling too, you know. So very different reactions, and you know, you see Halmoni throughout the book talking about, you know, he drinks too much and judging him for drinking, and we'll get into that a little more later. you know, and, you know, his wife, blah, 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 and this, that, some other thing, da, da, da. You know, like, they want as many people out of North Korea, but at the same time, it's just like, why do they do that? They're idiots, da, da, da. You know, if only, you know, but very, very mixed feelings. And when you look even at the concept of the Korean family, the entire Korean peninsula, towards the end, you know, South Korea had been experiencing an economic boom, but then they kind of have a big crash and they're trying to rebuild. And the entire family is like driving through Seoul, and they're going to have a big press conference to, you know, talk about what they went through and, you know, to publicly reunite. It's all fine. It's all fine. Now we'll have to pull together as a country. Only then can we truly work towards reunification. Only then will we know true happiness and security. And it's kind of interesting. I bookmarked this page because I remember when I was serving in South Korea, I was stationed in Seoul, and I love the taxi drivers. They were freaking crazy drivers. Oh my god. I used to say if I died in South Korea, it would be at the hands of a taxi driver in a traffic accident, because they were just like, either they knew no fear, or they were like idiots when it came to driving. But some of them, we would talk, and some of them, their English was impeccable. But they wanted to talk about, you know, hey, you're an American soldier, da da da, and, you know, a couple times I got into conversations with the taxi drivers about reunification, and there were very mixed reactions. Like, one definitely wanted to reunite, but then there were others who were like, you know, no, like, they're all brainwashed, they're going to be a drain on our society. There's no way that they can function in a free society. They're too broken. You know, we have to leave them where they are. So even when you look at the concept of the Korean peninsula as one big family, because there are a lot of separated families, even when you look at that concept, there's a lot of mixed feelings. Like, a lot of people would like to reunite with their extended family, and they would like to reunite as a people, but then there's this question of, can North Koreans actually function in free society? Can they actually let go of what the Kim family did to them and brainwashed them with, to function as a member of the democratic world? I'm going to try to go through the next couple of points really quickly, because I know I have been rambling a lot. So the family in front of you versus the family unseen. The biggest example of this I found was with Helie and Helie. So at one point, Helie is talking about she would choose Helie. You know, we kind of already went through, you know, she'd rather see Helie dead than the Reds capture her. But she also talks about, you know, she would have chosen Helie over the North Korean family anytime. You know, because she's right there. And, you know, obviously she loves her, but, you know, because she's right there. So, when it comes to extended family and family you haven't seen in like 40 or 50 years, you know, the thought occurred to me, like, you know, at what point do you, I don't want to say cut losses, because that sounds so heartless, but at what point do you say it's been too long and let it go as just a tragedy, or do you keep fighting in that kind of situation? You know, it's really hard for me to, it's hard for me to conceptualize that, because I was born in America. You know, I've lived I've moved around a lot. I spent some time in South Korea, but for all intents and purposes, like, I've lived here my entire life. You know, I've lived in this one mindset, not one mindset, but, you know, I came from a democratic society. I am a white female, you know, so it was hard for me to conceptualize that kind of, you know, if I had family in North Korea, would I try, like, what length would I go to get them out? Or would I focus on, hey, I got 2 kids here, I have a family here, you know, I have a mother and sister here. Would I just focus on that? So it's a hard question to answer, but at the end of the day, I think it's an individual one. But if it's a question you're interested in, you know, read this book. Deciding the fates of people you don't know. So again, this kind of ties into the previous point of, okay, you have North Korean family. You've decided you're going to save them. Good for you. But is she? Let me see, what page is it? 286. A couple of times, Helie goes back and says, you know, if I had known, I wouldn't have done it, or I would have done something differently. So at this point, Moon Charles just come to the hotel room and, you know, almost assaulted Halmoni. And they talk about how Moon Charles went through a period of very, very heavy drinking because that was his method of coping. I backed off. Moon Charles' pain was palpable. I had been overly optimistic about our chances of for success. If I had known the countless perils and hardships all of them would be exposed to, my decision to go forward with the plan would not have been so easily made. It would have been preceded by far more soul-searching than had been the case 5 months earlier. You know, because really, they did make this decision for them. And to be fair, you know, it wasn't like they could write them a letter and be like, hey, you want to come to America? You know, they couldn't. It would have been obtained by the government and, you know, censored, and or the family would have been, you know, there's all sorts of things that could have happened to the family in that instance. You know, so they couldn't really go and discuss it and be like, hey, you know, da-da-da. Their opportunities were very limited, and was limited to discussions through a guide who could get into North Korea, to the border town where they were living, you know, and discuss very discreetly, like, hey, we're thinking about June 23rd, you know, be at the river at 9. You know, Halmoni sent us. You know, there's only so much pre-planning you can do in that instance. So, but at the same time, it's also, you know, how the risk you are deciding for other people, the risk level you are deciding on for other people without necessarily their consent or assent. So, again, what would I do? I don't know. Hopefully I'll never have to make that decision, but for a lot of Koreans, they do. You know, these are decisions that they have to make, you know, for a family that were left behind or who were kidnapped and taken to North Korea. So, and then judging others' coping or survival strategies. The biggest example of this in this book is drinking. Halmoni is a very devout Christian, and she vehemently disapproves of drinking. And you see, I'm not going to say it's the pastime in North Korea, but I mean, when there's nothing else to do, you know, a lot of people don't have jobs, they don't have, you know, a lot of food, you know, they have rice liquor and, you know, whatever else can be smuggled, you know, and their prospects are dim, you know, it's not like they can really advance through the echelons of society because the society is built against that sort of thing. You know, there is no American dream in North Korea. You know, the best you can hope for is that you don't get banished. So, you know, you see it with Young Moon Uncle, and you also see it with Moon Churl. You know, they do drink a lot. The guide drinks a lot. And you see Halmoni judging them very severely for it. You know, she calls the guide a drunk and this, that, and some other thing. And, but on the other hand, you know, it is a Korean tradition to drink a lot, you know, and if you look at it, apparently Koreans are some of the biggest drinkers in the world. So, but it's very, you see her judging them a lot for the drinking, but at the same time, like, I can see why they would do it. I would probably, be a raging alcoholic too if I lived in that kind of society. Because there's only so much hope you can have, and for the most part, it is hopeless. Especially if you are already banished because of your family's previous history and whatever. There's nothing you can do about that. So, it's, I don't know. It's difficult. So those are all my notes for the book. There's so much more we could discuss. It is packed chock full of stuff that you can discuss, and I know I've been going on for a while. But bottom line up front, I did really enjoy this book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's going to go into my personal collection. My books, actually, it came to me falling apart. So you see I have pages literally falling out of this book. But this, I feel like this is a must read for anyone who is interested in North Korea, especially in light of recent events. It sheds a lot of light on stuff. I mean, if you want like a historical political perspective on North Korea, there are other books that might be better. But as like a personal memoir of what one family went through to rescue their family out of there, and the difficulties in getting out of that country, this is a really, really good book. So definitely recommended, 5 stars. What I'm reading now, I am reading a book called Meddling Kids. I believe the author's name is Eddie Cantero. I left it on the dining room table. It's really good. Most of it is a pretty quick read. I heard about it on NPR. And I think you guys are going to enjoy it. If you like Scooby-Doo, you're going to enjoy this. So hopefully in a couple days I'll have that video up. I also have Girl on the Train, so I'm going to be reading that. I do have a habit of reading more than one book at once. I'm trying not to do that with Girl on the Train just because of my experience with Into the Water being very confusing and very, watch my video on Into the Water. It's a little thing. But I don't want to risk losing details and having issues reading Girl on the Train if I try to read it at the same time as something else. So that'll be upcoming as well. Other than that, it is stinking hot here in Florida. This past week's been really, really busy and crazy for me. My son just started kindergarten, and the same day my youngest lost my husband's driver's license, so I have literally been the family chauffeur to get my husband to and from work. So if you see bags under my eyes, that's why, because I've been, taking him to work at 11 and picking him up at 5 in the morning. So whatever, that's life. So hit me up in the comments. Tell me what you thought. If you enjoyed this book, if you have book recommendations for me, tell me what you're reading. Tell me what you thought of this video. Hit like, hit subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I enjoy making them. I enjoy, the whole note-taking process and being able to discuss books. It makes my heart so happy. So let's keep this conversation going, guys. And until next time, you have a great one. Stay safe, guys.